Hello, this is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for July 7th, 2015. Just sat down 2 minutes ago, just got in front of the computer, been racing to try to get certain tasks done. There just is not enough time in the day when there's so much happening so quickly, so many bases to cover, and so few that are truly dedicated to it. And I'm grateful for everyone that's on this call, on this program, to take the time. I'll give an update here in a moment. Russ is with us as always. Russ is always there. He's always the same, and I mean that in the most complimentative way. He's always Russ. I'm very grateful for his friendship and for his help in this battle. A lot of things I couldn't do without Russ, without his help. Same with Doug Diamond and others, and they know who they are, and feel immense gratitude toward them and their steady and constant demeanor that I can always count on. They're always there covering bases. So anyway, I just want to express my gratitude to them and all the rest that are helping every day. We'll take calls at 15 after. If people can keep their mics muted so that we don't hear background noise. And in a week, we're going to have, for next week's show, we should have a much better system. And I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work. I have to figure this out in the next week, but I've purchased airtime with funds I really can't afford to spare, but I feel we must right now. We are in the stretch. We have to play every card we have. Our situation is so nonlinear on the bigger picture, and many don't yet quite grasp the gravity of that, even within this movement. The immediacy of what's unfolding is still not quite clear, and we need to make that clear. So I've secured a Northern California live broadcast radio show Saturday mornings. The GeoEngineeringWatch.org show will be rebroadcast on that hour, commercial-free, and that's very unusual. This is a major commercial station, Northern California. Everything they do is commercials and more commercials. To have an hour of commercial-free, hard-hitting frontline news on Saturday morning will be new for them, and I'm grateful to the station managers for helping me to get this worked out. They are sympathetic to our cause. They understand how important it is. They've helped do this, but there's still, of course, when there's no commercials, it's all the expenses borne by us, but it has to be done. Simply has to be done. We have the event in Northern California. I'm working diligently on that. John Wells is coming. Ken Keeling, his producer, and two of his other most important assistants. So John Wells will be emceeing the event that we are planning now in Northern California. I have a flyer out on that now. Should be posted tomorrow. Some already have it. We're going to try to make this the largest event ever. We'll have experts there speaking, as always, 5-minute statements of urgency. Also have one of the attorneys from our legal team there. So we want to bring everybody up to speed. And this will be the most dire, hard-hitting presentation I've ever done, because there's simply no time to do anything but a presentation that you have to consider may be the last opportunity you'll have for this. Not that the world's going to come to an immediate end, but our ability to communicate, our ability to organize such events should be considered as in a very immediate state of flux at this point in time, when the power structure starts to drop shoes, when they can no longer hide the gravity of what's unfolding and the degree of the crimes they have committed against populations around the globe. They are going to start playing cards. We're very close to this. See what's happening in Greece, for those that aren't following it. And all these are connected to climate engineering, by the way. Everything is connected. Sometimes I hear from people who are upset at me for dealing with anything else but climate engineering. You can't separate issues. We can't think in terms of this or that. It's all connected. The more we understand the mosaic, the more clearly we will see the image it presents to us. So geopolitical events are connected to climate engineering, very directly so. And that's why I spend so much time studying those events as well, because they are a part of the picture. You can't see the whole picture unless you have all the pieces to the puzzle. It's imperative. So as we see the economic house of cards begin to unravel, the environment is absolutely unraveling. We have devastating fires all over the globe. we have the fallout from those fires. And this is what's so important to understand. Some studies show right now that in the last 500 years, the total biomass on planet Earth, all living organisms, has dropped by 75%. Try to get your arms around that. A 75% drop in the total living biomass on planet Earth. Most people don't really understand how substantial the level of living organisms are when we talk about plankton, ants, for example. The mathematical mass of ants on the planet is astoundingly high, but everything is plummeting. We know global plankton stocks down 50 to 60%, and that's probably conservative. It's dropping by the day. So try to imagine that 75% of the living mass on planet Earth has disappeared in the last 500 years, and most of it in the last half century. We know statistically, and this was covered by mainstream media for those that have not seen this data or bothered to investigate it, but in the last 40 years, we now finally have mainstream media admitting that in the last 40 years, the human population has doubled, and global wildlife populations have declined by almost 2/3. Now, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that that kind of trajectory is about like an aircraft heading at the ground at a 90-degree angle. And even if the angle of trajectory changes a few degrees one way or another, it's not going to matter. It's going to hit. And that's the fact of the matter. Many ask me, I get this question often, Dane, if we stopped everything now, if we stopped climate engineering, if we stopped industrialized civilization, which it's only going to stop when it collapses because people do not want to stop the party. They simply don't. But if everything stopped today, I'm asked, wouldn't everything go back to the way it was? The answer is no. The answer is patently no. There is far too much inertia behind what has already happened. But does that mean we give up? No. Does that mean that we can't salvage some of the planet's life support systems? No, it doesn't mean that. We're in uncharted territory. We know to try to predict this would be like saying, well, you have this, again, a vehicle, I've used this example before, going 100 miles an hour. It's 10 feet from impact into a brick wall. Do you know that nobody will survive that? No, I don't know that. How could I know that? Nobody can know that. This is uncharted territory. And the most impossible situations, again and again and again, we've all seen this in various stories that we've had presented in documentaries or so forth of people that survive things that are just beyond miraculous. And that's the way life is. And at this point right now, the tenacity of life, we're about to find out how tenacious life is. If we can simply stop the assault against it. And that's our duty to do. It's not an option. It's an obligation. Every single one of us has an obligation to stand and fight back, to raise awareness. I don't mean physically going after anyone. We need these people on our side. We need military people on our side. And by taking that tack, and I know I've caught a lot of flack for that too, for deleting people's comments that write militant comments about the sort of violent actions that they think we should take. And I disagree. And by holding that line, by constantly stating that we need the support of our military brothers and sisters that are being lied to, that they've chosen to believe those lies, and they're engaging in activities that are killing their own brothers and sisters on the ground. But by holding to that line that we need to wake them up, we have to have them on our side, that has what has caused very high-ranking military officials to reach out to me and to some of the rest of us that are holding this line. Because that is the case with them. They have not knowingly or willingly participated in this sanity, and they're waking up to it now, and we need them on our side. We absolutely need them. We have no chance without them. We must stop this machine from the inside out. It is the only way it will stop. And if we all continue to work together, we are getting closer and closer to critical mass, and I don't mean our problems are over at that point, but we're getting close to the point where this can't be hidden much longer. If we all hold the right trajectory, That is the best possible outcome we're going to get. That would be the quantum leap in the right direction to expose this once and for all, for reality to sink into a population that doesn't want reality. It's going to happen. And the more credibly we can sow seeds of information, awareness, the more effectively this wake up will occur. It's imperative for all of us to focus on that. Over Northern California, right now, as we speak, yet again, a great deal of moisture is moving across us. I just observed outside. I'm on a mountaintop. You can only see wilderness in every direction from where I live. There's no sign of civilization in any direction. I have a very unobstructed view of the skyline in every direction. Massive amount of moisture moving across us. But they are engaging in an aerosol assault that is beyond anything I've yet seen. They are trying desperately not to let the rain fall. And there's so much rain that we do have thunderstorm warnings here, but we'll see if anything actually falls, because all you can hear outside is a parade of jets. It sounds like I'm at the end of an LAX runway. It's all I can hear. And knowing what natural clouds look like and having observed this for my entire life and been a part of the forest and the trees, and I noted the trees dying 7-8 years ago. I tried to alert my friends, scientists, and with CAL FIRE, with U.S. Department of Agriculture, with California Department of Fish and Game. I tried to alert them. No one listened. In fact, I was more or less left in the ditch and disowned because they don't want that kind of information. In fact, they didn't even want my calls coming in, my emails anymore, because it looked bad on their resume, apparently. So I've been completely left in the ditch by these people whom I've done nothing to except try to share the truth that they claim to care about. So the forest has been dying for a very long time. I've tried to sound the alarm, and on the clouds, which is the point I was trying to get to, our skies look so incredibly unnatural that it is staggering to believe that the population isn't completely alarmed. But it's come so slowly that much of the population doesn't even recognize a real cloud from a sprayed aerosol toxic mess. On that note, Russ, isn't that the case with people you know? That if you point out an aerosol cloud in the sky, they have no clue what's a natural cloud or not. In fact, right now, and I'll finish with this, and Russ, I want to hear your opinion. What we're seeing over right now, because they're aerosolizing the moisture so heavily, we're seeing the clouds that were only recently named, undulatus apparatus, mammutus. Did these not exist before? Did nobody notice them before? And now they're common, they're everywhere? Because the atmosphere is stratifying, because they are blocking convection. And that's what we see now, the rising thunderheads underneath this canopy of solid white. It's the most bizarre looking skyline I could imagine, but I live for the day when that is exposed and I again see the brilliant rising convective thunderheads as nature tries to maintain life on Earth. I live for that day. I absolutely live for it. Russ, how well do people around you recognize a real cloud from a sprayed aerosol mess?
Well, I live for that day too, Dane. As a sufferer from all of this, I really do live for that day like people don't realize. Do people recognize the mess? I am shocked. And most people who have woken, who look up in the sky and see what's going on, will some of them, there's two different groups of people. There's one group that says, I've seen it from the beginning and it amazes me that other people don't notice it. The other group of people say, I'm actually amazed that I didn't notice it. It was going on for a while, and then somebody pointed out to me, and then I noticed it one day. It is amazing, Dane. Even we had this talk a few weeks ago about the cumulus clouds that are very soft around the edges, and you kind of alluded to this a second ago. I have very vivid memories throughout my life of the sky. I've always been a sky watcher. And those cumulus clouds rise as that warm air rises through the cold layer of air, and they have beautiful, sharp definition. This is what a cumulus is supposed to look like. Today, you have these lame, soft clouds that kind of resemble cumulus, not to mention all of the other array of clouds that you're talking about. And the most astonishing thing is most people don't notice, which is why we have to be out there pointing it out to people, I think.
We do. I'm looking at radar right now. It shows heavy rain falling on my location right now. It is dry as a bone. Nothing on the ground. This is become the norm in Northern California. So we have people who think it's rained here or think we're getting our precipitation. We are not. We have people, and I hear this even from people who claim to be fighting against all these things we're speaking about, that there's no drought in California. It's just a misuse of water. I don't know where they're getting this from. I really don't know. I mean, I've spoken to this before. We're 250 inches of rain short, 250 inches of rain short where I live in the last 8 years, not 4. So we have a radical downplaying of the severity of what is unfolding on every front, including the temperatures, which I just got a report from Portland 2-3 days ago that their high for the day was reported as 10 degrees less than what it was. This is what we're seeing across the board, exactly what we're seeing. So in regard to the population recognizing a real cloud from a sprayed aerosol mess, which is pretty much the norm now in the skies above us, let's take some calls on that, see if we get any other perspectives on that. And I'm asking anybody who, if you're on the line just to listen in, that's fine. But if Russ pulls you up and you were just listening, just tell him that, no problem, and you can continue to listen. If you don't have a question, it's ready to go for us. That way we can roll through as many as we can. By next week, we should have a different system because I have to polish up the functioning of the show because it's going to be aired all through Northern California, again, commercial-free, starting on the 18th. So we're going to have a much bigger coverage for the show, much bigger. I'm signing a 6-month contract for that, again, which because we're being commercial-free, we're just paying for it out of pocket. But I don't know any other way. I don't know. I won't do it any other way. It's just like the no ads on GeoEngineering Watch. I won't put an ad on the site because it diminishes the message, and I won't do that. And the same with the news program. And I can't diminish the message by having a commercial for some sort of soft drink halfway through an absolutely dire message. I can't do it. So anyway, we're going to make the show as professional as we can and air it starting on the 18th. So Russ, we got anybody online? Let's if you announce a number, that would be great.
Absolutely. For those who want to call in, the number is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. And Dane, I'm looking at some headlines from yournewswire.com. The ocean off California coast is turning into a desert. Radiation from Fukushima, they talk about. Experts are asking, where have all the fish gone? Collapse of the sardine population, sea lions washing up on the shore. Is that what you're seeing out there?
It's a total dead zone. And I've logged hundreds of dives. I've been a dive master since I was 22 years old. I've logged hundreds of dives of the Channel Islands, which includes Catalina, Santa Cruz, San Clemente, San Miguel Island, San Miguel. The change in the ocean floor there over the years has been profound, absolutely profound. It's areas that when I first began to dive, and this was in the late 70s, areas that were vibrant with life, kelp forests, packed with many species of fish, lobsters, dead zones now, complete dead zones. There's nothing there, nothing. And I haven't been back for a while. I'm at this fight every day. I haven't been to the Channel Islands for quite some time, but I've spent a great deal of time around those islands, monitoring ecosystems there, and I've seen the damage in the barrier reef. I've been there twice on expeditions, and people have no clue. They have no clue what's going on, that this matters to them somehow, but they're going to find out soon. But Russ, the dead zone off the coast of California should be headlines everywhere, off the coast of the Western North American continent. But it's happening around the globe. It's not just here. Our ecosystems are imploding, and I want to stress this. From the ocean marine ecosystems to the boreal forests, this is a completely non-linear equation. You can't look backward and determine how much time it's taken us to get here and then somehow project that forward. This is happening at an exponentially increasing rate every day.
Absolutely. We're seeing, I'm seeing personally a massive decrease in the number of insects around street lights and house lights. It's dramatic. It's dramatic. There's a fraction of what there was just a few years ago. Also, I'm looking at an article here. Lightning storms hit UK. Map shows astounding number of strikes. Some people estimate 30,000 lightning strikes. So in one place you have drought. In another place you're having these extreme storms. Of course, we had it in the Midwest in the last couple of years. This is all geoengineering, isn't it?
Drought and deluge. And again, this is where it's imperative for people to understand the situation is complex. Just like the marine ecosystem collapse you just described, Russ, we have some that want to blame it all on Fukushima. That's absolutely not correct. That doesn't mean Fukushima is not a massive problem. It is. It's a problem with no end in sight. It may exterminate life on Earth eventually if it continues, but it's not just Fukushima. It's not just geoengineering. It's many, many things that are contributing. But again, at this time, I would argue mathematically, the greatest single causal factor for global biosphere implosion is climate engineering. And I say that carefully because it absolutely does not mean in any sense it's the only cause. When we put 100 million tons of CO2 in the atmosphere every single day, we're cutting down our forests, we're poisoning our oceans with everything from depleted uranium ammunition to nuclear waste of other sorts. Where would you start? I mean, the human race has decimated the planet, and anybody who denies that is not living in reality. But we have to look at all the factors. We have to acknowledge all the factors. Anytime we mention a problem this complex as simply being just this or just that, we're not looking at the whole picture. So all of us need to remember all the factors so that when someone who's an environmentalist, and granted that I've said this before, they're the hardest to reach of all in this equation, and I am one. I've been one my whole life, but I simply feel we should focus on the greatest priorities. But if you approach this as the only problem with the environment is climate engineering, you just lost that person, because that's simply not true. It's absolutely not true. I've tried to restore forests where I live myself on the ground, working with crews that were part of cost share programs to help me restore habitat. I know firsthand the decimation from irresponsible logging, and it doesn't mean it can't be done responsible sometimes in some ways, but it never has been. The chemical use, where would we start? I mean, again, the human race has been very bad stewards of the planet, to put it mildly. But the greatest example of that of all, the greatest example is climate engineering. So, Russ, can you announce a number? I know we're getting kind of late. If we can.
Absolutely. For those who want to call in and speak or ask a question, rather, 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. We have, I want to try to get our first caller, but I don't have a number for you. So, caller.
That's me, then?
That's you. Go ahead. Who are we speaking with?
I'm Michael. I'm from Canada.
Michael.
I don't know how you guys are doing, but I know it's already not good at all. So
it's not. How are things up your way?
I was going to get to that a bit later, but I was first going to just give a little introduction to say that I've been aware of this issue since I was a teenager, about half a decade ago, when I saw a video that was showing the spraying on YouTube. So that was a pretty big wake-up thing to see there. And it was only a couple years ago that I found a presentation of yours, Dane, that showed me and became fully aware of the gravity of this current situation.
Thank you for waking up to it. Again, we need everybody in this fight, absolutely everybody at this critical time, especially. You were going to mention how things are up your way.
Yeah. So, I'm on whoops, what happened there? Oh,
still having.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm on Vancouver Island in Canada.
Yes.
And things over here are still looking pretty good. I'd say the trees still look pretty prolific, and of course that's not going to last for long at this rate. But I would say that maybe from where you guys are, we're about a year or two behind the destruction that's been happening. So
it can come on very, very, very quickly. And when I moved to Northern California from Arizona, I lived in the top of the Hualapai Mountains. It's a sky island in Arizona with aspen trees, and the implosion was happening there, and based on the best available research, 1,000-page manuals from IPCC modeling, which is the best available at that time, I came here, which showed in Northern California the greatest probable increase in precipitation. But climate engineering has changed all of that. Climate engineering has turned everything on its head. It's disrupted, as you know, the hydrological cycle from top to bottom, so that well, your forest might look good now, and if climate engineering can be stopped, they might stay looking good for quite some time. If got a little background noise somewhere, but if the climate engineering continues, we'll have demise very, very quickly. The forests that will stay looking better are the forests like where you're at that have not historically had extremely cold temperatures. Those are the forests that are faring the worst because the pest populations there are consuming them. Forests in Northern California have also been used to extremes without a lot of cold, so they are faring better considering the severity of what they're being exposed to. But forests, for example, in Colorado that have historically had a lot more cold, beetles are consuming them extremely rapidly.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about the disruption of the hydrological cycle, like I was saying, that I think like this area of the world is a couple of years behind of what's happened to where you are, in that it was this place was still very thriving and getting lots of rain until just recently. Just this past winter was the first winter. I asked a local person who used to run a museum here for the history of this place, and she's lived here for more than 40 years. I asked her, has there ever been a year where there was no snow in the winter for here like there was this past year? And she said no. We got like maybe 1 centimeter of snow one night in late November, and that was it. The rest was just rain.
The only snow that is falling is chemically nucleated snow is the only snow that is falling. But on the hydrological cycle, again, if climate engineering was stopped, the hydrological cycle would resume with a fury, an absolute fury. The atmosphere, again, carries 7% more moisture for every degree C of warming. It must rain more on a warmer planet. The only reason atmospheric RH, relative humidity, is going down is because of the saturation of aerosols in the atmosphere. But again, so many roads lead back to exposing and stopping climate engineering. And we could at least, at minimum, buy some time to start dealing with other issues. But this is the first one. If we don't deal with this, nothing else matters.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say with the, I guess I'll go with the relative humidity. Now this year, because I moved to the island just a couple of years ago, so I'm not completely familiar with how everything is here. But for the past couple of years, there was only about like 1 month for a time frame in the summer where there was no rain and it was hot and dry. But then it got back to raining and stuff. And that was in later, like August, we'll say, for the summer. But now this year, we're coming up on, or maybe even past, 2 months of complete drought now. There's been absolutely no rain.
So imagine in Northern California, I'm in a boreal rainforest as well. We had 70 inches annually. It used to rain from mid-September to June, off and on, and pretty consistent. We have not had rain since early February here, with temperatures in the 1 teens. I mean, even in the winter, quote-unquote winter, we had temperatures pushing 90. I mean, it's like living in hell here, and how the local population who's lived here all their life and who convinced themselves it's just some sort of natural cycle. Let me put this into perspective. The odds of these changes on our planet, and this was done by professional statisticians, the mathematical odds of what's happening at this time being quote-unquote natural in any sense is 1 over another 1 with 100 zeros behind it. There's no name for a number that big. It's a virtual mathematical. Pardon me?
Just 100?
Well, I think they stopped at that point. Bottom line is this, mathematically, it's impossible, and it doesn't take really a lot of deductive reasoning to comprehend that the human race has decimated the planet, and those who are still trying to convince themselves that there's nothing wrong, it's okay to burn 4 billion gallons of oil a day, aircraft running around our skies, spraying toxic materials, cutting down the forest. That reality is not going to continue much longer. But again, all this being said, life has to be about something. And if it's not about fighting for the common good, what's it about? We owe that to our children. We owe that to all children. Even if you don't have children, you owe it to the rest of the children in the world. We owe it to them. We owe it to every insect, every animal, every tree. We owe it to them to fight for the common good. And again, if there's a quantum leap we could take in the right direction, it is absolutely positively this issue. This is the issue. This is the epitome of human insanity. It's the greatest assault against the natural world ever launched by the human race. This is the issue that could turn the paradigm on its head if we can expose it.
Indeed, and with the people not waking up to it just yet, that's because they still have water running out of their taps. With this area that I'm living in, being so prolific with the amount of water supply that it has, like I was saying, we're a couple of years behind where you are for that sort of situation, and so everyone's still fine with that because I talked to them and they still have water running. But then we point out to how the local mountain that you can see here, for the first time ever, no longer has snow now, and we're just starting summer.
You're exactly on target. You're exactly right. So long as, again, example I've used before, so long as the tap flows and McDonald's is selling Big Macs and Walmart's open, people will try to remain in their normalcy bias. That day is about to come to an end. So the more that each of us can spread credible data, and I try to impress this on people, pass on something. Don't just verbally disseminate this message. Pass on a flyer. But the more we can do this, as populations are forced to awaken, they will be able to get their bearings to some degree. If we've passed on that data credibly and effectively, we still can beat the power structure to the intersection. And the intersection meaning the point where they put all their pieces in place and they've played the game in the manner that they planned. We have to beat them to that intersection, and that's where all of us matter in reaching critical mass. Because you're exactly right. So long as people can pretend this isn't happening and they have water coming out of their spigot, they're going to stay in their denial. But that day's about to end.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say. So this is like the main thing that I wanted to talk about for why I called is that I've been talking to this about the weather specifically, and then bringing up geoengineering because of it with my local farmers at the farmers market. And so whenever I ask anyone there what do they think of the weather, they all hate it. There's negative reaction across the board. They're completely getting devastated out here from this drought. But like I was saying, that they're still kind of not completely destroyed because they still have well water, which is coming from the runoff of the mountain, which has lost all of its snow, so it's no longer going to have runoff. So that's not going to last too much longer. But so I'm bringing up geoengineering to them when discussing this, and they're not dismissive of it, but they're not particularly receptive of it either. And next week I plan to bring some business cards or whatever paired off from your site to hand to them to get them to get involved or look into this more. And so I just wanted to, yes.
Keep planting seeds. I recommend that too. And I just had a good conversation with Will Thomas. He's a journalist from Canada. He lives in Hornby Island in British Columbia. Will has expressed a lot of the same things you're expressing to me right now. I just posted an article from Will today, seeing the same kind of changes you're seeing. The bottom line is keep sowing seeds. The rest of us will do the same. If there's anything else you can pass on, send it to Russ, to me, and we'll try to help get the word out on what's happening in your area. But let's all keep sounding the alarm. Again, every single day counts.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so once because it's going to happen eventually, it has to happen. But once we do, get, or at least in my case, when I get the local farmers rallied up about this, then I was wondering if you could just give a quick advice on so when we're ready to take action and I have that support, what kind of action should we take or what we should look to do?
Well, again, we have it on the homepage of Geoengineering Watch. There's the activist suggestions link and the flaming arrow link. And those are links that every single person can use from home. And we have to shoot those kinds of flaming arrows of awareness to try to wake others up. And once we get enough inertia, enough momentum, then a lot of wheels will turn on their own. This is how we have the attorneys involved right now, because we have enough critical mass to where they know they're sinking on the same ship we're sinking on. So everybody has to then continue to pay it forward, if you will. If you wake them up, express to them that they need to help wake others up now. And we'll know when we reach critical mass. We'll know, because we'll wake up and find out that this is now out in the open and it can't be hidden. And all hell is breaking loose around us, because that's what's going to happen. When the power structure is fully exposed, and this issue will expose the power structure more than any other, we'll know, because there'll be a shockwave around the globe, period. So we need to move toward that point. Thanks for everything you're doing. Hope those links on GeoEngineering Watch will help. And forgive me, we're going to try to grab a couple more callers right now, but very, very important information from Canada. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, okay, and so just to quickly close up, so the activist suggestion page, I'm looking at the site now, I click it and it takes me to Introduction of Geoengineering and Climate Engineering.
Yes, and there's links there already picked out. Okay. Email link to groups, organizations, individuals. There's an introduction letter, and it makes it easy for people from their own home computer to do a lot of good, and we need them all to engage in this. We can't have once-a-week activists. We need people to every degree they can. I realize people have lives to try to deal with as well. They can't engage every minute of every day, but when they can, as much as they can, we need everybody in the fight. We need all hands on deck.
And lastly, I was going to say that once I get the support of these farmers and stuff, I'm going to plan to have a serious human-to-human conversation with a local Green Party MLA candidate that recently joined the Green Party about half a year ago, whose coordination I went to. And I've talked to him about some other serious issues in the past, so I'm going to try and get him to become aware of this, see if he'll be willing to help in this fight.
Rattle every cage you can and do it with full confidence, not with timidity. These people need to wake up.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Michael, thank you for calling from Vancouver Island. Appreciate your phone call. Dane, I was at, I spent the 4th at Hawk Mountain in outside Philadelphia in southeastern PA. Even 1/10 of a mile, when you look at some of the vistas, 1/10, 2/10 of a mile, you see a haze in the air. This was a dry, hot, but relatively dry day. The visibility should be unlimited, from in avionics terms, should be beautiful and clear, but the haze was unbelievable. And this is what people are breathing.
It is. It's building up in all of us. Again, this is a fight for life, nothing less. We all need to look at it in that manner, and that sort of urgency should be in all of our voices when we're communicating this with others, but not a panic, not something to alarm others, but with a confidence and an urgency that is justifiable given the magnitude of this issue. So,
absolutely. I mean, when you're in a pristine area, pristine park like this, when you're out in the country, you're in farm country, should be beautiful visibility on a day like that, beautifully crisp and clear. But this is one of the artifacts that you can point out to your friends and neighbors. Look at this haze in the air. It should be a crystal clear day. This is what you're breathing. But we can move on to another caller. Caller with your number that ends in 03. What's your name?
Hi, this is Allie in Seattle. And I'm calling tonight because I wasn't able to be on the call last week, because I had one of the most incredible experiences ever attending what they call our Think and Drink. And this is happening in our University of Washington. Somebody gave them a nice donation to start a nonprofit called Humanities of Washington. And Humanities of Washington puts on our Think and Drink program, and there are hosted conversations to pubs and tasting rooms on provocative topics and new ideas around the state. Well, last week, the speakers were Lauren Hartzell-Nichols, environmental specialist and professor of philosophy, and Thomas Ackerman, professor of atmospheric sciences at the University of Washington. And then it was moderated by Zaki Hamid, program director at Humanities of Washington.
Well, this is not unusual at all. And this is where a lot of people in these little circles
Well, let me continue on this, Dane, because it was really got to be interesting.
Just please condense it if you can, Ollie. That's all. I just want, because a lot of our listeners aren't familiar with these particular names. I just want to get you the basic, the core of this.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
You want me to continue?
Yeah, yeah, please continue. I just don't want to go into a lot of the names and the fine details because a lot of our listeners aren't familiar, but if you can get to the core of what you're trying to mention with this meeting, I would like to hear it.
Well, Thomas Ackerman, he was just unbelievable in what he was saying that they needed to do and looking into geoengineering and that. And he was so pushing and not telling the truth. I mean, he was denying and deceiving everyone there. So they had a microphone at one end of the room, and I went there with a group of people, and two of us got up and spoke. First was Rebecca. She spoke like a paralegal about geoengineering and that. And when I got up and spoke, I said that I got up as the ageless beauty that I am. Since 1968, I've been a photographer and a sailor worldwide. And it wasn't until 2012 when somebody asked me if I knew what it was I was seeing in the sky. Well, that's when I learned about chemtrails, and when I've gone back to my photography, I have seen how they came in to my pictures. And now I'm obsessed with taking pictures of them.
Well, again, this is right that all
because I got a big thank you for Russ. So I said, Professor Ackerman, you will probably debunk me and attack me on this. But before you do that, and I want to say this to you and everyone in this room, if you don't believe this is happening, go get your blood checked for heavy metals, for aluminum, barium, and strontium. So thanks to Russ for posting that and giving me that bullet to shoot at him.
Well, again, and this is important if you get a good test, if you get an accurate test, because that's where some of the lab testing now is suspect, and if someone goes to get a test and it's not done properly, that can be a problem as well. But the bottom line with a lot of these environmental groups, corporations, people involved in them, they're very comfortable in their bubble. We know organizations like 350.org, Bill McGibbon, is funded by people like the Rockefellers. They have bought, sold, and paid for the quote-unquote environmentalists. It's like that across the board. Bottom line is it's up to us to wake them up. It's up to us to force them into the light of day. So thank you for what you're doing, Ollie. That's a model for others.
Dane once said to me was, this is what they are doing in the University of Washington, in our universities. They are deceiving their students. They are telling them, as Lauren, she had this 4-point slide, and the first one was science. Can we do it? Ethics. Should we do it? Governance. How do we do it? Small scale, exploring the process. Large scale, testing, deployment. Excuse me, they're saying this is something we need to think about for global warming.
We know this. I mean, this is the mantra across the board, Ollie. This is the mantra across the board. We know that. This is all their narrative, that this is just a proposal, but we all know, obviously, the elephant in the room could not be any bigger. We know the universities, as I said before, they've all been bought, sold, and paid for. The power structure was not going to let what happened in Vietnam happen again. They can print all the money they need. They have literally funded the universities from top to bottom. They control everything they say and do with very few exceptions. So we know the situation. We know that it's again being manipulated in this manner, but it's up to all of us to do what you're doing, to do that kind of introduction of data, to film that. That's important, because if you come back and share verbally, that's helpful. But if we have a YouTube of that kind of exchange that you can post, it's much more helpful. It's much more damning to those people that you're exposing. So I stress to everyone, if you go to such a meeting and you expose people who need to be exposed, make sure you get it on film, or it has very, very limited use to us otherwise. So please film everything.
Well, you'll be glad to know that after that meeting, I said, that's it. I should have had this recorded. And I went out and bought a new Sonio handheld video camera with a built-in projector, so I can actually show it project it on the wall from my video camera and not have to have people look in the little screen.
Yeah, film it next time, and hey, email that to Russ or to I, and we'll definitely look at it, and I'd be happy to post it and try to get these people on film, Allie. And thanks for everything you're doing, and we're going to try to grab a couple more callers before we run out of time, but keep us posted, and please get us some film footage.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Thanks, Allie. Thank you.
Allie, very good. I'm glad that you did that, and thank you for the thank you gave me about the suggestion of having people check their blood, because we have to make this personal. We know
yes, and there must have been 60 or 70 people in that room, in that pub.
That's right.
Yeah.
Once people lose that fear of being isolated or being alone, and they start seeing a mass of people, it's like Dane has been saying, it's the 100 monkey syndrome. You're going to have people flocking to this issue and realizing that this is the issue of all time. So thank you for your work, and make it personal. That's great. Thank you for buying your projector camera. All power to you. Keep going.
And the gal that I travel with, she is definitely like a paralegal. She's usually in common law, where I'm with her on notices of liability, and we are now active members in the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. Because people need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
Get it on film. We'll get it out in the open.
All right, Allie. Send anything to me you have, Allie. I'll be happy to promote it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Allie. All right, caller with your number that ends in 62. Who are we speaking with? Caller, 62. Your number ends in 62. That's you. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, this is Gary.
Hey, Gary. How are you?
Okay. I'm still doing my phone calls. Now I'm on the EPA's doorstep. How are you doing, Russ and Dane?
We're doing fine, Gary. Appreciate everything you're doing down there, and definitely keep up that same type of push. Again, the immediacy with what's unfolding around us is going to require all of us to stay in the front line as fast as we can. Russ, and Gary, you can take a look at this maybe off the Global Skywatch site, but I'm going to send forward a flyer for the event in Northern California, again, August 14th. Just got another confirmation back from John Wells right now on the show here that he's definitely going to be here with his producers and so forth. So anyway, from every direction, each of us, wherever we're at, in the best, most efficient, most credible way we can, we need to sound the alarm. And having a piece of data with you to pass out makes a lot of difference, Gary. So I know you're doing that as well where you're at. Grateful for all you're doing. And again, keep rattling cages there, Gary.
Dane, I'm gonna be real quick. I don't have the money because I have to do car repairs, so I'm not able to get the flyers. I checked several areas throughout Tampa, and it's expensive even for the cars. It's like $50 to print out 100 cards or something. So, but I'm able.
Something's wrong. I mean, you should be able to find those cards. We get literally for. I mean, you're talking about 50 cents each for a card, and we get them for a penny a piece. So, you just have to find the right location, Gary. That's all. And you can't. You have to buy a certain quantity to get that price. But, for example, I think I bought from the print shop. It's called Color FX. I got 20,000 color glossy cards for. They were less than a penny a piece. So again, you just have to find the right location. You can't go to a Kinko's and expect that.
Well, I did go to, a pricey place. I can't find nothing but the pricey printer shops. But I guess I could look for pops and moms and pops printer shops. Maybe side.
No, try Color FX. Anybody listening, try Color FX. You're not going to find any.
Where's that at?
It's in Southern California. You can Google them. They ship for very inexpensively. It's just a better way to go. So Color FX, just search Color FX and you'll find their location. Very, very high quality printing, extremely cheap. That's the best way to go. And again, it makes the job of sharing information exponentially more effective and exponentially easier to have something to pass on to people, because then you don't need to go into a rant, which typically sets off people's defenses. It's just simply a lot more effective way to go. So I just got to find the right location. Color FX is the best one I found, and I don't think you could beat them. I really don't. So anyway, you might keep that one in mind, Gary, and that'll give you another option.
I have another thing I could use. I could also put it on DVD, the website, and I'm doing a lot of clips from you and Russ's shows. The best parts of the clips that explain about geoengineering. I want to put it all on one DVD and put the website. I'll put information like if you want more information, read the text file on the main DVD on the website to go to geoengineeringwatch.org. That's
Keep in
what I
mind
mean.
also the simplicity of the message is important also with a lot of people, and to keep that in mind too. If you can have something that's in a condensed period, any kind of video, if it's shorter, same with a written message, if it's shorter, people's attention span is abysmally small right now. You just need to keep a message as hard-hitting and condensed as you possibly can. That's another factor, but not discouraging you from sharing. Would like you to do that, but just make it as short and hard-hitting as you can. But hey, grateful for everything you're doing, Gary.
Yeah, and I did share with someone, a friend of mine who's also an activist who calls all the time. I told him when we talk about geoengineering, we have to rush them from, like, these people who are sheeple, they call them sheeple, they're asleep at the wheel, you know what I mean? We have to wake them up. They're like in kindergarten, and we need to graduate them in 10 minutes. So we need to graduate them in high school, from kindergarten to high school, about geoengineering. I always try to bring the message, out like white lines in the sky at geoengineeringwatch.org. Have you noticed drier conditions in your area? I mean, I try to do it where we can graduate them, but they don't know about geoengineering when we tell them what's that. When I try to explain to them. But we just need new people. We need to be able to wake them up real fast.
Keep in mind, you can't. It would be nice if we could plant an oak tree down someone's throat, but it simply won't grow, not until it's forced to. So although it's possible in some cases, generally speaking, you have to simply plant the seed. If it's time, that person will wake up. You talk to people a lot who, once they're introduced to this, and they're off and running immediately. They get it. They were ready to wake up. But for others that aren't ready to wake up, I don't care how big a tree you try to shove at them or down their throat. You can't plant the whole oak tree. So you just have to take it case by case, Gary. And again, sometimes less is more in this case. If people are ready for more, they'll find it. That's why a lot of people question why I'm not going into every single rabbit hole with many intricacies, because I would lose the vast majority of people, and that's not my goal. We're better off with a key to get the people into the door. If people understand the population, they're being sprayed, they're inhaling this stuff, it's building up in their system, to go intricately deep into the cellular damage, into all sorts of things that they don't necessarily understand yet, you can lose them along the way. So initially, at least, I think our tack should be to try to get them through the door. Those that are capable and willing will find their way down the rabbit hole. But Gary, hey, thanks for everything you're doing. Forgive me. I'm going to try to grab a couple more before
You're
we
welcome.
go.
I'll hang on the line. I don't know if you can stick around, but I'll hang on the line if you can stick around.
That's fine. Stick around, Gary. That's good. And I'll tell you, next time I'm in Florida, I want to come down and meet you, and maybe we can have an event or something, or do something. But thank you for what you're doing, Gary. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'll try to get to it. We still have time for a couple more quick callers. But, Dane, I really needed to mention this to you. I wanted to bring this up. There is a Arts and Humanities Research Council paper called Geoengineering Governance Research. The title of the paper is Climates of Suspicion, Chemtrail Conspiracy Narratives in the International Politics of Geoengineering by Rose Carnes.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that paper. It's been out for quite a while. I had some correspondence with Rose Carnes, and she simply is trying to walk a line. Ultimately, she denies this issue is real. She's just simply trying to say that the tinfoil hat people should be listened to, and that's simply not adequate. And that's why there's pieces about Rose Carnes on Disinformation Directory, which I thank Rebel Siren for doing, the admin on Disinformation Directory. That's the purpose of that site. And Rose Carnes is a feature on that site. And we featured her because of her initial paper before the one you're outlining, Russ, where she simply flat out denied it. And she did not like being featured in Disinformation Directory. She did not like the light shown on her. So she tried to alter her position slightly. But Rose Carnes is a part of the problem, just like most of the rest of academia. And although she tried to straddle the fence a little bit, if you will, certainly not truthful, ultimately not adequate.
All right. Well, appreciate you pointing that out. This was just pointed out to me in an email today. and or at least I got it today, and I was checking it out, and just thought I'd bring it to your attention, see what you had to say about it. But we do have some callers we can get to real quickly if people have questions. Person with a phone number that ends in 700. Are you on?
Yeah, guys, how you doing?
Hi, how you doing? Who's this?
This is Mark from Florida.
Hello, Mark.
How are you?
Just a quick question. Are they trying to kind of tweak the image of geoengineering to mean, more like planting trees and things of that nature, where if we say ban geoengineering, you start looking like the bad guy? Because I've seen some recent articles suggesting geoengineering means replanting forests and things of that nature, not necessarily aerosols.
Mark, your point is really valid. Now, I have never seen ever any suggestion connecting geoengineering with reforestation. I've never seen that connection. I've seen certainly carbon sequestration, which is artificial trees to suck up carbon. I mean, that should show the ludicrous society we live in when we have natural trees that have allowed the planet to survive, produced oxygen, sequestered carbon. But instead of planting trees, we're going to build artificial trees. This shows, again, the degree of insanity in our society. But the term geoengineering has been designed to be deceptive. That's on purpose. And when using that term, and a lot of people are reluctant to use that term because it sounds like something positive, something good, something thought out, when obviously it's not. It's an all-out assault of total destructiveness against the planet. But nevertheless, if we want to gain traction, if we want people to see that this is a real, tangible, credible issue, we are stuck with having to play chess by the rules of the chess game. If we want to beat the opponent, which is the power structure, we need to learn how to play chess. And refusing to play by certain rules that can allow us to win, rules that they don't want us to play by. And I've posted interviews with myself and David Pakman, mainstream media hitman David Pakman, which proved how emphatically the power structure wants us to use the non-science terms. They absolutely are pushing for us to use those terms so that those investigating the issue get nowhere. And we don't want that. So even though I agree with you, the term engineering implies a dignity with this issue that does not belong there. But nevertheless, it's the term that leads to data, which leads to credibility, which leads to waking people up. And that's why the science terms are still imperative to use and learn how to use those terms so that you can get your foot in the door with people so they understand this is a credible issue, a real issue, and then they will figure the rest out.
Very good.
But thank you for bringing that up. And if you find anything that implies geoengineering, any proposal that's planting trees, please send that to me because I haven't seen that. But your point is totally valid, Mark. That's the reason they use terms like that, to try to confuse a population in regard to the issue, what it really means, and what others like us are really fighting.
Yeah, there was a mainstream article the other day saying, planting so many trees will start sucking out the CO2 from the atmosphere and, kind of steering it in another direction than aerosols.
If the human race wants to survive, industrial civilization must stop, starting with the stopping of climate engineering, and the human race must engage in planting trees around the globe. That's the best course of action. But thank you for bringing up a very valid point, Mark, as far as the term
Thanks
itself.
A lot, guys.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for all that you're doing, Mark. Dane, we're down to the last 30 seconds or so. I wish I could get more callers in, but any final thoughts?
No, let's all keep sounding the alarm. Make every day count.
Absolutely. This is Russ Tanner, half of GeoEngineering podcast. Every night at 7